Hello and welcome to MrRipper's Serene Summer Cottage Getaway. I am your gracious host with the most mosquito bites, that is. Dave Makes Noises, and today we're asking the internet, what way did you use a useless spell in a good way? Part 2. It's been a really long time since that campaign, and I don't really remember what specifically happened. During it, I was playing a bard. I had the spell Faerie Fire. That spell just makes things glow, from what I can remember. We were fighting a devil. The devil went invisible, so we all couldn't see it. In our panic, one of our other players asked me if I had any spells that I could cast on it. I told them, I have Faerie Fire. They told me to cast it, but since I couldn't see the devil, I couldn't target it. I yelled, "What do you want me to cast it on? My ass?" Lucky for us, I was able to cast the seemingly useless glowy spell when we spotted a purse the devil was carrying. We slaughtered it afterwards. 3. Our party had a couple of kobold NPCs that were servants to the dragonborn cleric in the party. We were looking to cause a distraction in town so the guards would move away from the main keep and allow us to sneak in without too much of a fight. For the distraction, I cast Prestidigitation 3 times to create 3 trinkets, 3 vials of dragon's blood. I gave a vial to 3 of the kobolds and told them to go to the market square, a large tavern, and the barrack, with the direction to drink the magic elixir when it was noon. For those who are not aware, the effect of drinking dragon's blood can be determined by rolling on the wild magic surge table. Kobold 1, Tavern. Kobold runs into the tavern and then grows by 6 inches. Kobold 2, Marketplace. Kobold stands in the middle of a busy market and fills the market with fog. Kobold 3, Barracks. Kobold sneaks into the mess hall and by sheer stupid luck rolled a 2 on the table, so 10 more rolls on the surge table. Of these 10 rolls, he grew a beard, frightened some nearby soldiers, cast grease on himself, fell over, turned blue, glowed brightly, blinding those around him, levitated, turned himself and those around him invisible, teleported to the other side of the tent, and exploded when he cast Fireball on himself, setting the grease on fire and burning down the mess hall. It was one hell of a distraction. It is a tactic I now refer to as Arcane Terrorist. I know Prestidigitation has its uses. It's usually for flavor reasons and not so much combat, but man, this is just too wholesome though. I can't not put it here. We were helping this NPC hunt for this giant gelatinous creature, but after we found it, we were too late, and it had been corrupted by abyssal energy, which caused it to change color. Once we defeated the creature and had some of it packed away, the NPC noted that no one from his village was going to believe him that this was part of the same monster, so I shifted my brain into maximum overdrive. I'm dumb, and searched through my spells and found out Prestidigitation can change the color of stuff. I charged in like Barry Scott and kill-it-banged that slime back to green. We then headed back to the village where the NPC was congratulated and even rewarded us by joining our party. Not D&D, but Aboria. I have a level 1 spell that makes it able for you to breathe underwater, and besides that, it's useless. However, the spell is modified in the newer version of the game. You grow gills now to breathe underwater, and you can only breathe outside the water if you put extra magic points into the spell. So guess who is now equipping all our enemies with gills in the future to suffocate them? Only on the really bad boys, though. My PC is pretty good-hearted, so he wouldn't be so cruel to suffocate all. Also, level 3 Light and Darkness spell. I can enclose objects or persons with magical light or darkness. It does no damage, but if you want to quickly flee, just enclose your enemies in eternal darkness and run. And yes, the spell has no time limit. I was/am playing an Icewind Dale campaign with a very homebrew-friendly DM. In this campaign, I play as a wizard with a penchant for the chaotic. We have Kibbles, a fleshsmith artificer, a dumb-as-all paladin, and a cunning fighter. We had just received a quest to go and investigate the mountain strongholds nearby because one town was constantly losing its food source. This was particularly an issue for them because this town had to sacrifice food in order to live, meaning that there was no surplus of food in the town. We arrive at the stronghold, and our fighter immediately senses that something is wrong with the door, having marks in the snow despite the fact that it has been snowing quite heavily. There is a small pillbox-type forward stronghold in the middle of the clearing, and my party decides to try getting into the stronghold through there rather than the front door. Now, being rather chaotic and having a flair for risk, I decide that since it will be close quarters and the enemies might be looking out through the arrow slits preparing for an incoming attack through the front door, that I would make it look as such before flipping the script. So my party makes their way into the stronghold whilst I make my way to the front door. Once at the door, my party starts the massacre, and I use shape water to seal the door shut, essentially spraying water through all the seams and any holes in the door and letting the freezing temp seal it for me. Unbeknownst to us, the stronghold was full of Draugr that had prepared a few undead critters and an undead ogre to release when the door was opened, as well as a spike pit behind the door. So the Draugr released the undead, but are now stuck with these crazed creatures in their base, with a full party sealing off their only other way out. Suffice it to say, that stronghold is no longer occupied. Perhaps not useless overall, but in combat situations, Fabricate is useless. We were on the chase to stop a cultist with their undead from activating some magical obelisk. After determining that they were trying to set up camp, we came up with a plan. We wanted to keep the cultist alive for questioning, but didn't want to give them a chance to run. I came up with the idea to start casting Fabricate, and just before the spell finished, we would rush the camp. While the rest of the party would attack the undead, my wizard would use the material under the cultist to create 10-foot-tall walls around them, effectively opening a hole under them and trapping them in a pit. The group liked the idea, and so I started casting. On the last round of casting, the party jumped from cover and charged. My spell goes off, walling off and creating a pit under the cultist. The plan went well, until we hear the scream of the cultist falling down the pit end with the sound of broken bones. Turns out the GM rolled max on the falling damage, and the cultist had a tiny health pool, so they broke their neck on landing. So my party was fighting a giant mech dragon death weapon that had been crafted by the Season 1 level 7-ish big bad evil guy. The creature was trying to escape its chamber by manually prying open the doors. It was supposed to escape and rain hellfire all over the civilization outside, but the DM didn't tell us this. So I assumed that this was just the hardest boss fight ever and began to use my spells creatively. Luckily, my Bard of the Whispers was canonically insane. I cast Dimension Door to teleport myself onto the dragon's head, and then followed it up on my next turn with Dissonant Whispers. The dragon failed its wisdom save and had to use its reaction to move as far away from my character as its speed would allow. Except she was on its head, above it, so the dragon plummeted to the ground, bringing itself into the range of the fighter and paladin. Most people use Dimension Door to run away from encounters, to avoid traps, or to get into locked rooms. I used Dimension Door to help route a boss towards my party so that they could beat the crap out of it. My bard changed her surname to Dragon Rider after that. My party was hunting down a base of goblins that had acquired gunpowder weapons, long story, and we encountered a tank. Now, we had encountered and defeated one of these before and had investigated that they were operated by peddling bugbears and goblins. My level 5 artificer had the brilliant idea to cast Enlarge Reduce on the tank to reduce its size, crushing all of the goblinoids inside after a failed save. TLDR, my level 5 artificer defeated a 150 hit point tank in one turn by casting Enlarge Reduce. An apprentice wizard accidentally scuffed the robes of one of the elders at the wizarding college, so was challenged to a duel. Hey, he tried to apologize. During the duel, the elder wizard pulled out a scroll to summon a demon to drag the apprentice off to the abyss. Enter the Prestidigitation cantrip. While he's reading, I walk up and place an ink blot on the scroll. Turns out demons really hate it when you mispronounce their name, especially when it's a needed part of the binding to control them. Oh, the demon showed up, already pissed at the bad pronunciation of its name, then at the temerity of the elder wizard summoning it for something so piddling as an apprentice. The elder wizard now has a new home. Survival campaign, playing a druid. Determined the weather with Druidcraft to plan out what tasks were priority. Rain in the forecast meant getting tinder and firewood before it got soaked was important. Later, I used the same cantrip to light our campfire that we were struggling to light manually. The DM was genuinely shocked that I was making good use of a cantrip that the whole party considered useless. This was an unintended bad effect. My DM runs two groups that are set in the same world and can affect each other. In the previous campaign, the other group used Faerie Fire and it hit a pine crystal. Now these crystals are extremely volatile, and when hit, they roll on a custom wild magic table. They ended up summoning an ancient black dragon. They were level 3, and then one of them tried to lie to the dragon. Two of them died, but got inspiration as they were role-playing how their characters would act. My party was under a Gios to fight in a fake dungeon fighting TV show for a secret, highly technologically advanced continent of evil races. Think WWE, but we're supposed to pretend to be adventurers clearing out a dungeon. Our second level party got to the final room in rough shape after nearly getting TPK'd by a few oozes. A strange glass, TV, was showing us that inside the room was their intended rivals. a bunch of demonic spellcasters, the criminal necromancer dancers. My GM had a lot of fun with that one. My Tabaxi bard uses disguised self to look like a fat, ugly, bumbling version of their party. He then crept up to the door and used message to pretend to be their boss, a mind flayer, using sending. I explained that the adventurers were really terrible and nearly got killed by the oozes, and he's going to send in another member of the criminal necromancer dancers to switch out their powerful weapons for weaker ones to keep the fight interesting for the viewers. I totally expected the plan to fail, but because the NPCs didn't want to break KFAB, Google it, and I guess I will Google it, KFAB, K-F-A-B. Well, it's a news radio station in Omaha. Why, bruh, you can't just tell people to Google something and not know that the results are nowhere near the first page. I don't know what KFAB is, and you know what? I'm not gonna look it up. This is your fault. Shame on you. And some great deception rolls. We got to fight a bunch of magic users who were stripped of their spellcasting focus, a magic refracting disco ball, and armed with some useless, mundane, not even going to try and pronounce that I had purchased. Salutations, my sweet summer child. I hope you are enjoying your peaceful lakeside vacation here at Rip Daddy's Cozy Summer Cottage Getaway, and thank you for enjoying the full extent of this video presentation. If you used what might be considered to be a useless spell in a subversively useful way, please feel free to share your findings in the comments on this video. If you've got another story you'd like to share with the community, please share it with our official subreddit, r/MrRipper. I hope this week that you take a step back to remember that we are spirits trapped in ham on an out-of-control meat ride through this incarnation until it comes to a screeching halt one day, and then I assume a bunch of other cool trippy stuff happens. At the very least, we can do our part to pilot our meat suit courteously, and try not to bump into too many other meat pilots because it makes for a rockier ride for everyone. All of a sudden, that argument over rules as written doesn't seem so important, am I right? If you love me and want to hang out sometime, follow me over on twitch.tv/DaveMakesNoises, where I regularly hang out and jam and chat. We're so glad you've elected to join us over at Rip Daddy's Cozy Summer Cottage Getaway Escape Extravaganza. Please sub for Nat 20s, ring the notification bell if you want to join the early squad. Thank you again for watching, and we will see you next time.